back America, one listener at a time. This is the Bella Dangelo Show.
Hello, hello, hello. We are here, and we have so much to talk about tonight. All I got to do right now, real quick, is I have to share the page real quick. I'm going to copy the link so that we can get as much viewership, because I don't know why or what is going on, but we will get this technology. I said in show prep we weren't going to talk about any of the technical errors, but we got to get the show out because people are asking, where can we watch it? Where can we see it? So I am just posting it real quick. There we go.
Yeah, this is episode 3 of Red, Right, and Real. And I think the first 2 episodes have been phenomenal. Sometimes it's like you start a new project, you're getting a lot of viewership, and you want to continue to hit that stride. And honestly, we got to get in the habit of telling people to make sure to hit the like button on whatever platform you're watching this from. We actually now have a YouTube page. So it's just youtube.com/@Red, Right, and Real. And you can watch from there. Or if you're watching here on Facebook, that's fantastic. But again, hit the like button, drop a comment at the end. We're going to go through different comments. And then also make sure that you share this video, because if you share it, other people will see it. Share it to your personal page, share it on X, wherever you have social media, you should share it if you like the show that we do. And then very lastly, if you're not following our show page on Facebook, make sure to hit the follow button. And if you're not subscribed on our YouTube page, please hit subscribe. I would love to get at least, let's say, 10 subscribers by the end of today's live stream. That would be fantastic. So hopefully we can do that and continue to grow our reach, make sure that we can have honest, real, and red conversations, because, you know, that's what we're here to do, is to try and bring the idea of politics and culture and really break it down from an everyday American Minnesotan perspective. If we do that, then we will be very successful in actually being able to impact, I believe, the way that politics impacts people's everyday lives. They don't see this high barrier to like getting involved in politics, because sometimes that's what it feels like, right? Like, I know even for you, Bella, you know, you've probably come across people and they think that like, oh, well, politics is for people that are more whatever, right? Like more involved or higher educated or whatever.
My direct answer to that immediately is, if you earn an income and a paycheck and you pay taxes, you need to pay attention to politics and you need to vote. So we'll get started here. I want to give a little bit of man on the street today. So I was walking around and doing what I do, which I would encourage everybody to do, which is I say that I'm doing a survey because of this podcast. But I was asking, are you voting in November? And then are you voting for Kamala or Trump? And, you know, I think I surveyed about 40 people today.
Okay.
Out of all of the 40 people that I surveyed, only one person said Kamala. And he said, am I going to get in trouble for saying this? And I said, absolutely not. And I stand by this all day long. You know, whether you're center to far left, we support you. We have a God-given right to our beliefs and who we support. That's why if you are middle to far left and you'd still like to join us in some very healthy discussion back and forth, I welcome you. Yoga Hot Pants, my mama, aka Carolyn Lillo, was a lifelong Democrat, and she was a huge fan of this show. Towards the end, she really questioned the party. And I think that's what a lot of people are questioning. The interesting thing being here, and I got to watch how many times I go, I don't know where I developed that habit. Here in Minnesota, I think you thought that there was going to be more support for Tim Walz. Do you know that everybody that I surveyed today not only did they say Trump, but I said, what do you think about Tim Walz? And over and over and over, it was the handling of the burning of Minneapolis. Many of the other things that we're going to get into, like what CNN was talking about with Tim Walz, they were unaware of a lot of Tim Walz's policies, but everybody really remembered the summer of the burning of Minneapolis and the absolute lack of response. The basic, what they felt was a celebration of the burning and the destruction of Minneapolis.
I mean, that's what I love about what you do, Bella, is you are courageous and bold enough that you like to just talk to people that you interact with in your daily life and kind of, get a real time pulse of what average Minnesotans are thinking. And I think that's fantastic. And, I guess what I'll do is I'll clarify, the way that I really look at the reason why Democrats have power and they've, had control of all of the statewide offices since 2010, right? That was the last year of Plenty, last year of Secretary of State, auditor, and we didn't actually have Attorney General the last time around, which is the whole other thing in and of itself. The DFL had that Attorney General locked down for a while. But the reason why I say that the DFL continues to win, why Tim Walz won, why before Walz you had Dayton that won, why Al Franken won, Tina Smith, Amy Klobuchar, is because the Democrat media apparatus is AKA our local media apparatus. And so because of that, my fear was that Tim Walz would present this, this opportunity for the local media to be able to just love and push all these. Isn't it great? He's one of us. And then also there's like the attitude that comes from, I would say from the homerism. So in the world of sports, right, we say someone's a homer because they're like always rooting for the home team, even if they're garbage or they stink it up. And that's because people have loyalty to, where they're from and where they live. So there was that kind of angle too. But I did say that I was very surprised and taken back by how much national level media scrutiny was being heaped on Tim Walz. And I think he is feeling the heat. We can kind of break that down and talk about a couple of these stories. Now, I know that for those of us that have been involved in the world of politics, we know all this stuff, right? We've known.
And let me jump in here real quick.
Yeah.
I was just one of the ladies that I was surveying today, and let me back this up a little bit. First of all, the reason why I do what I do was that when I started this podcast back in 2010, I was unknown. I'd never done it before. And the most simplest way for me to build listenership, and this might sound kind of really simplistic, it started out with a Post-it note. And my goal was to get people that don't normally listen to conservative talk radio to tune in and listen. And I purposely designed the show with a lot of bit of humor. And as we build this show and everybody gets to know us a little bit more and gets a little more comfort, maybe I can get close to some of my oil field stories, like the day that Big Chief was his nickname. And they had said that my mouth could probably start a revolution. And anyways, the thing was, my real goal was, and I stand my ground on this one, we're not going to make a huge impact unless we can pull in people that don't normally listen to conservative talk radio. One of the things that drives me nuts is when we listen to other conservative media heads. I ask myself, can you get an 18-year-old to listen to that? Could I have gotten my lovely 86-year-old mother to tune into some of that stuff? You can't. You know why? Because they're typically ranting and raving and screaming. They're talking too high level, or all they're doing is talking about the topics that that you and I and all the like-minded want to hear and understand. I will give this one oil field story because this is an analogy that I use many times on young people to get them to when that person says, I don't listen. I don't pay attention. I had this real life experience. I was fortunate to meet a nice young roughneck. And if you've been listening to the show for a long time, you've heard this story. But he was installing a stereo in my pickup truck. And we were sitting out in the Walmart parking lot. And I was empathetically pleading with him to vote. Now, this would have been in the Romney campaign, which was 2012. And he said to me that him and his girlfriend didn't pay attention to politics, and it didn't, in fact, had no impact on his life whatsoever. Okay. He said, I just go to work, I come home, I eat a pizza, drink some beer. Politics has got nothing to do with me. And I said, I'm glad you brought up your paycheck. I said, have you looked at the itemized of where money is being taken out of that check and where it's going to? He said, I mean, I know money gets taken out, but I said, okay, I'm going to give this example. The money that is deducted out of your paycheck, let's make it let's make it even simpler. Let's say your paycheck is $100 for simplicity. I want you to take $40 of that paycheck and I want you to stick it in your pocket because that's what you get to keep for the week. And the $60 that is left over, you're going to walk to the next neighborhood. You're going to knock on the door. And when they open up the door, it's the middle of the afternoon. They're not working, but you've taken your lunch break to go and give them this money because they're not working. They need money. And you are supplying them with money to get pizza, beer, marijuana, and porn. I mentioned porn because what else do you do when you're sitting around eating pizza, drinking beer, and I don't know. It caught his attention too. Okay. So he said, and I said, you hand them that $60. And then what I want you to do is you say, I'm sorry, but I have to get back to work. I can't eat your pizza, drink your beer, smoke your weed, watch your porn because I got to work and I got to drive and I can't get pulled over. But I will be here next week to give you that same money next week. And I'll continue working while you continue living off the system and taking my money. He looked at me and he said, what country would I be living in if that was the system for supporting people that aren't working? I said, entitlement. That's entitlement. And that literally is a real basic analogy as to why you should pay attention to the policies and the people being elected. Frey is adding 8.1% increase in property taxes in Minneapolis. I'm sure that will go over tremendously well.
Yeah.
As inflation prices and the price of housing continues to soar. So this young man said to me, okay, I will listen to your podcast. And I said, good, bad, indifferent, or you just completely can't stand it. I said, just honor me with this. Listen and give me feedback. And it was literally about a week later, he called me and he said, first of all, you had me laughing. And he said, your laughter can make anybody's bad day good. And he said, I didn't know what Islamification was. He said, but the longer I listened, you made it easy enough for me to understand. And now all of my buddies listen to you because this is a podcast and you can listen to it at any time. Those are the things that make me keep fighting and make me get excited about what I do in this movement. And that's why I walk up to people. Today it was at McDonald's. It was at Holiday Gas Station. Jay Dugan, who praised us the other week for our great show, he actually saw me in live action. I was at a gas station and there was a security guard and I literally, while I was pumping gas, just said, buddy, are you voting? And that was in the 2020 election. But AK, what we're seeing now more than ever, we need to get people to understand the radicalization. And I know that this is being talked about on many different media outlets, but when you talk to man in the street, woman in the street, and you get to understand that one of the core shared frustrations and burned into our memory, if you will, was how they handled what happened after the George Floyd, which the George Floyd should not have been handled the way that it was either. And then when it was set fire, and when the 5th precinct, people were bailing out of the back windows and doors to get the hell out of there, and they let it burn to the ground.
The third precinct.
Sorry, 3rd precinct. Thank you for the correction.
Well, the 5th did get attacked back with the Jamar Clark case, but
I know I had that somewhere in my mind. I'm not losing it yet. But the thing is I had said that very night, I said, this is sending a dog whistle. This is letting people know that they can just start looting and burning and destroying when they just simply don't like, what the hell happened. It doesn't mean that it's right or wrong, but that was the beginning of when I said, there's really good families, and they can be on the left, in the middle, they can be indifferent, but they had families and children in those neighborhoods that were terrified. The stories that I heard, and you can't take that out of our memory. And even if you are on the left, you remember what it was like when you watched and you saw. You also remember all of the horrific, which I didn't get into this last week when we were very blessed to have Scott Jensen come on. And I really wanted to tear into and bring back some of the crazy memories of the draconian measures that were unleashed on this state. And there are stories and stories and stories. I have personal friends that didn't get to see loved ones pass in hospitals, and knocking on windows to see your mother, your grandmother. The snitch line that keeps, there was an argument on Facebook. Oh, it wasn't a snitch line. It sure the hell was a snitch line. There was threats about 10 or more people at Christmas gatherings, and yet our churches, we couldn't go to church, but you could go into a pawn shop. You could go in and buy liquor. I mean, all the madness and insanity. And does anybody remember, I think Tim Walz set the record for how long he held on to that state of emergency.
Yeah.
Power.
So yeah, he held on to the executive powers that were supposed to be. I mean, the reason that they were created is like if you actually have like a natural disaster or something crazy happens, you need to be able to have quick, decisive action for the governor's office to be able to do a lot of things without having to go through congressional approval. But it's meant to be like literally for emergencies. But the governor held on, Governor Tim Walz, for as long as humanly possible. Multiple times they tried to strip it from him, and it was like tyrannical, right? And I think that, again, like to kind of put this all together, everything that you're expressing about the anger that especially those of us that paid attention, the anger of those that became activated, sometimes it still feels that it's just not enough, right? Like in 2022, as someone that understands how poor of a leader Tim Walz is, how much he lies, right? How the only thing that motivates Tim Walz is how we can either gain or keep power. It's just like, how can average Minnesotans not see that? And I come back to my initial and original thesis, and it's because our local corporate mainstream media does not hold him accountable. They don't press, they don't go deeper. And so with him being announced as Kamala Harris's vice presidential running mate, I was afraid that it would be the same thing. But the thing that has happened is that this national scrutiny has had an impact, because now there's so much national attention on all of the things that we have known that have paid attention in Minnesota. The rest of the world is finding out, like quite literally. And so that pressure is forcing local corporate mainstream media to have to start to write about it, because they will lose all of their credibility. And that's what the most fantastic thing that I did not anticipate would happen. Now, I'm usually a very optimistic guy. And so to see this has been heartwarming. And even just today. Now, Bella, have you got caught up to speed on the latest lie that Tim Walz has been completely exposed on?
I actually, I'm thrilled. Many people don't know much about my personal story, but I have been back being working girl. So I've been out conducting sales calls, had limited exposure to talk radio. What could the latest lie possibly be?
So the latest lie is that he has been going around attacking Senator J.D. Vance, obviously President Donald Trump's running mate for vice president, about him voting on a bill, right, that would ban IVF, or I should say, not voting, therefore not passing a bill that would create a national IVF protections. That's a better way to actually describe it. So the Democrats made a bill in the Senate, and they wanted to create basically like a national set of policy procedures that would allow IVF with again a national level of
Explain IVF for those that don't know what it
yeah,
is.
in vitro fertility. So
I
someone,
figured.
yeah, yep, someone can't get pregnant, and so they go to a doctor, and they take the male's sperm, the female's egg, and they actually take a bunch of embryos, a bunch of eggs. They fertilize them, and then they will take those fertilized eggs and try and insert them directly into the uterus, and so they can attach, and there's a much higher probability that the woman will be able to get pregnant. Now, in that process, basically, pro-life people like myself have a problem because there's not a standard that says how you dispose of those fertilized eggs, these embryos, which are human life. That's what I honestly believe. That's what I think is actually true. Scientifically, you can't say that that's not a separate, unique human life, because it is, once the egg and the sperm have been combined. And so, long story short, because of JD Vance not supporting that bill, which he did for the purpose that I'm telling you, is that there was no standard that would actually allow for states to not have the destruction of that human life. That JD Vance was being basically slammed by Tim Walz. Tim Walz is saying he doesn't support IVF. And Gwen and I, which is Governor Tim Walz's wife, he said, we used IVF to be able to get pregnant. If it was up to JD Vance and he was in power back when we were trying to get IVF to be able to carry our beautiful daughter, Hope, that would have never happened. Well, it turns out today that's a lie. They did not use IVF to actually conceive. They used what's called intrauterine insemination. So instead of doing the IVF, which again, you take the sperm and the eggs, you keep it very, very cool. And then when you are going to try and go through a round, it's very expensive also, and
This
it
is
doesn't always work.
this
Go
is
ahead.
rich. Ashley Biden basically gave Joe Biden Father of the Universe award last night.
Yeah, there's that too. But back to Walz's lies.
Yes.
He is basically, again, he's made multiple videos, went on bashing JD Vance, saying that Gwen and I use IVF, and if it was up to JD Vance, we would have never been able to do that because he wanted to ban IVF, which is not true. That's not what JD Vance was doing. But found out today that it's not true. They didn't use IVF. They used artificial insemination with humans, right? People are familiar how you do this with livestock, right? Is you take the sperm and you inject it so it can get very, very close, and then it's just a shorter path to be able to deliver the sperm to the egg and begin fertilization of that egg, and then now you have an embryo. That's what they used. Way different. And so today, Gwen came out and she's like, "Oh, we never used IVF." So that's a pretty big lie because he kept on saying it. Like there's no, mincing words. And why would he say that? Because again, it makes it look like if you like Tim Walz and you're like, "Yeah, that's right," JD Vance selling that story, he's against IVF, which he's not, by the way. But even that story, Tim Walz made up. Now, of course, he lied about his rank when he ended up retiring, right?
And quite honestly, AK, I think that was kind of the catalyst that lit the fuse on the bomb of blowing up Tim Walz. I think that people that have served are very, very proud of their rank and their service, and they know exactly what they did. And for Tim to come out as here's the thing, our people who serve, they they're serving for us and for the country. And for somebody like Tim to come out and claim that he carried a weapon and was in Iraq when he literally was sitting his rear end. I'm going to try and keep it clean and not say some of the things that I've said in the past. I want the viewership to grow. I don't want people to think that but he was sitting on his butt eating pasta over in Italy. I mean, then he turns around and then, the DUI that he claims that he was out shooting a gun, so he couldn't hear. And the thing is, when I watched the convention last night, so first of all, let's get into the convention a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm driving along and I'm coming home from the barn last night, and
you said barn, BARN, not bar, BAR, correct?
The barn, my beautiful Frisian Percheron, lovely mare. And I just want to throw this out there. If anybody needs something and they don't want to do traditional therapy, equine therapy is the bomb. There isn't anything better than it. And I've got a wonderful barn. If you want to private message me, I ride with wonderful people and a wonderful instructor. It's totally turned our life around. But I'm riding home last night and I turn on Fox News. Hildebeest is screeching and I just cringed and I thought, oh no, I've got to go home and watch this thing. But I'm sorry, but where was the energy? Where was the vibes that they keep talking about? And by the time I was watching, then I literally took pause when Ashley went up there and was just giving this glowing report about her dad. And it goes on and on and on. And then Joe, by the time Joe's up there and he's just screeching and screaming and the anger, and you can feel the anger between the Biden and Kamala. And when he brought up about the Inflation Reduction Act bill that she signed, they panned over to Kamala and Timmy, and they both looked like they had been sucker punched. And I am just ready and excited and want to see the polling numbers when we get past all of this. The honeymoon phase is over with, the DNC, everything, because I go on a more organic feel, which AKU and I have talked a lot about this. When I look at the state of Minnesota and when I don't see any Harris signs, I've only seen a splattering of walls, nothing like what we predicted would happen. I can't find anybody. And by the way, the one gentleman that said that he was voting for Kamala, when I said, why? You know what he threw back at me? He said, Trump's handling of January 6th. And I personally was driving around doing outside sales on January 6th. I had a friend of mine, Marquita, I always slaughter her poor name. She had a restaurant down in southern Minnesota, and she was in a brutal lawsuit trying to save her business so she could feed her children, a young single mom. And Keith Ellison and Governor Walz were going after her hot and heavy. She was there watching Trump's speech. And when she found out about the January 6th insurrection, she called me immediately because she said, Bella, I was still listening to Trump in that speech. And it was about another 30, or he still was speaking when the doors were broken into, and we can get into that another point. But when I started pointing some of the facts out about what really happened, then he said, well, I guess I know who you're voting for. And I just calmly said, thank you for discussing this with me. And I wrote down the Bella Dangelo show on the receipt for McDonald's and handed it to him. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it, because I do believe that when you hand a grain full of truth in a respectful manner, without in an argumentative or a tactful manner, he may actually Google me and maybe eventually find his way to the show. And hopefully we find one more person to learn and engage, and hopefully take a second look at what is going to happen in November. So AK,
Yeah.
I will jump in.
Yeah. So, you were talking about, obviously, that's the other thing is, I said, it's nice to be able to see that there's national scrutiny on Tim Walz, and kind of the conventional wisdom is a vice presidential running mate can't actually lose you an election. It can either help you or hurt you. And clearly, in my estimation, I think Tim Walz is hurting Kamala Harris. But in kind of the vein that you're already talking about, is that the DNC is going on right now, and to much, I would say, anticipation of those of us that have paid attention, we knew that there was going to be all these protests, right? All of the anti-Israel, pro-Palestine, and pro-Hamas mixed kind of all in there together. And on the first day, on Sunday, they tore down one of the barriers. Now, I'll tell you, as someone that went to the RNC, I was a delegate this year, and I went to the RNC. Not once was there ever even a slight threat that someone would tear down the barricade. The protesters that were there numbered in the like dozens. Maybe at one time there was like 30. And so the DNC has all of these other protesters. Who knows how wild it's going to get? But it's completely, I think their overall goal is to try and force the rest of the Democrat Party to capitulate to their demands, so their far extreme leftist demands. Now, the Democrats, for the most part, love to do the extreme leftist thing as long as they can create a narrative that it doesn't seem like it's extreme and leftist and extreme and Democrat and radical. Like behind closed doors, believe you and me, most of these Democrats are Marxists. They are commies. That's what they believe. But they know that that's not popular with the American people yet. And if we have our way, Bella and I and President Trump and all of the good Minnesotans that love this country and love America, they'll never have the power to actually do anything out front and overt and be accepted by mainstream Americans. And so that's what the purpose of these protesters are, is to try and force the Democrats to capitulate with the threat that if you don't listen to us, then we're not going to vote for you. And I love to see this, right? Because this is what the Democrat parties, like this is, all of the seeds that they sowed by going to these far extreme leftists and radicals and putting them in positions of power, like Tim Walz has done here in Minnesota. He's put a bunch of Marxists and socialists into power in the state of Minnesota. And this is what you will reap when you plant all those seeds. And so I love to see it. But back to your point about last night and night one, you got Joe up there. Clearly his brain doesn't work. I made a clip. You can go and check it out if you already haven't seen it on my X account. And that's at x.com/real AK Kamara. Follow me on X/Twitter. And it's like he's trying to talk about Roe v. Wade and the Dobbs decision. And he like his brain breaks and he says like women electrical. So you had that. Then, like you said, you had Ashley Biden giving him Father of the Universe, which, by the way, remember that entire diary that was proven to be Ashley Biden's diary, 100%. That's important for people to understand. Now, you can question whether or not what she wrote actually happened because, listen, people write fantastical stories all the time. There's no way for us to actually prove that at this point. But the diary 100% is real because people went to jail for stealing it. And we know that it was Ashley Biden's. So it's just disgusting to see that. But yeah, watching the next few days and watching today, watching it back and seeing what's going on, watching tonight's presentations, the Democrats and in Minnesota, the DFL, they're going to do everything in their power to create this narrative of unity, but it is absolutely a dumpster fire over there. And to your last point, when you talk to average everyday Minnesotans and your more organic, we'll call it, anecdotal stories of data versus, the polling data that comes out, it's always interesting to see how those things end up coming together. I still believe that as long as we continue with the same level of enthusiasm, with the same urgency to get out there, knock on doors, chase down ballots, we will win. We will make this thing too big to rig. But it still is, you can't be too cocksure. And sometimes you have to change strategy based off of new information. Now, here's what I wanted to ask you, Bella. Do you think, or what do you think the probability is on a scale of 1% to 100%, or I guess I'd say 0% to 100%. What do you think the probability percentage is that Joe Biden will step down or be 25th Amendment, and that Kamala Harris will be raised to president as one last way to try and kind of go all in so they can make the media cycle, the news cycle, all about the first female Black president right before the general election? What do you think the probability or percentage chance of that? I'm curious.
Well, that's interesting because, and then I want to go back to why I'm hearing a lot of the responses that I am hearing when I'm out in the street.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to remember. Okay, so when several states were trying to keep Trump off the ballot, and people were freaking out and saying to me, "Oh my God, maybe there won't be an election, or there'll be an election, but it won't be fair because they've already, they're keeping Trump off the ticket in." I know Colorado was a state, and you got to remember, if they do it to us, we can do it to them.
Sure.
You're setting precedences. So if the 25th gets pulled on Biden, what's to say that then we don't turn around and somehow try and inflict it upon Kamala? I mean, you have to be careful of the precedents that you set.
Sure.
So I don't know if they'll be bold enough to do that. That would be interesting to see. There's a lot of problems because I really do believe that the decline has come much faster, and we literally are seeing a very heavily medicated Joe trying to get through. I kept saying last night I didn't think that it was actually him, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I can't tell you that there's somebody standing up there with a Biden mask on. How many times have I heard in my last couple of years of doing this that the White House was a stage? It's the MGM studio. The White House is empty. Biden has been gone a long time ago. Well, I'm sorry, that's not true. That is Joe Biden, and we are living in historic times, and we are living at a time when I fully believe that this could be where the Democrat Party has to take a look at themselves and say, how do we reinvent ourselves? Because I don't know that it'll be the landslide that I have believed, but I think that once more people understand the far radical agendas and policies that these two are running on, and she wants to be everything to everybody, but once it comes out about the fact that she wants to be done with fracking and drilling, she's going to be pro electric vehicle, the high taxation. It goes on and on and on. I mean, and the interesting part is she would like us all to believe that she is going to do all of these amazing things, like the $25,000 to first-time homeowners, which anybody can understand that's going to increase the price of homes to $25,000 to begin with. But the most bottom line truth about that is anybody that's looking at real estate, there are no first-time home buying homes for her to target for those people to even be able to go after and buy, right? AK, and then on top of it, so it's just a bunch of happy talk to get us to believe that she's going to somehow come in on her unicorn and fairy dust and fix this country. The bottom line is this country woke up a long time ago. I don't care. You can argue with me all day long, but if you go out and talk to people in the street, the hourly wage earners, the middle class that are working hard and to support their family and their kids, small business owners, medium-sized business owners, I know the way my life has changed, and I make a decent income, but we are feeling the pain. We are feeling the pain at the grocery store, at the gas pumps, making decisions about going on vacations or not. There's not a lot of hope out there, and we're all feeling it together. And so when we listen to this happy talk run around, this nonsensical individual that honestly, I think Biden almost speaks a little bit better than her in his drugged.
his drug fueled rants. And here's what I just want to go back to the question that I asked. And this is I love this. So for you don't necessarily place too high of a percentage on that. They might 25th Biden or get him to step down and insert Kamala so she can kind of have that like high press riding into the to the general election. And even if it does happen to you, not that big of a concern. That's fair. For me, I don't know. If I had to put a percentage on it, I'd probably say like 51%. I think that it's more likely than less likely, not like by a ton. And I think that they'll do it because right now, I think the Democrat strategy for Kamala Harris is to just try and eat up the press cycle with as many changing, breaking stories that can give coverage and cover to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. That's what I think their strategy is. But you're right that it is a two-edged sword, that if they 25th Amendment Joe Biden, that it sets this weird precedent that, it's basically like, if we think that you're not doing well, we're just going to boot you out, instead of saying like, oh, we are almost to an election, so keep him in there. And then, we're going to have a changing of the guard one way or another. Now, I did want to go back
Now,
to.
let me interject. This doesn't
Yeah.
mean that I don't think that there might be a medical reason so that they don't have to use the 25th.
25th,
They
sure.
could fabricate some type of medical situation why
Sure.
they are. Yep.
Yeah. And so the other thing too is like, talking about the way that Kamala speaks and that Joe Biden might be a better speaker. Joe Biden has been like, okay, you add in this time as of right now. I mean, we're talking 50 plus years of being in public office. So of course he's a better speaker than Kamala is. But Kamala,
That's
she's either she either has, I'll say one of three things. She either has some type of nervous tick that makes her burst out laughing all the time. B, she is hitting like hidden flasks and she's a little sauced up. Or 3, they've got her on some anti-anxiety medications that make her super weird. But like something is going on with the way that Kamala talks. That is not how people normally talk. And if you look at old videos of her, she does not talk that way. So it's the same way that when you look at Biden and you say, how has he changed? And you can look at these older videos and see that it's not the stutter, like that lie that they push, like Joe Biden has a stutter, that's why his brain doesn't work. It's dumb. But that's the thing, is that with Kamala, if you watch older videos of her, she doesn't have this like maniacal laughing thing that she does. And I think it's so insane that they're trying to spin it to be joy. Like even last night, right? Hillary said, she was like, they're attacking Kamala for her laughs. Sound familiar? And it is funny because Hillary Clinton did the laughing thing, but I think that's all manufactured because they said, you seem too stern. You seem like an angry woman. And the American people think that angry women are scary. So you need to smile more, which you do by laughing. And so I just think
Hilda Beast had the charm factor of, I mean, that's why do you think she? Let me just. My mom lived to be 87 years old. She had mild dementia,
Sure.
but she was spot on, and she spoke very clearly. And you got to ask yourself, Joe Biden does have dementia. So what does Kamala have? I'm sorry, but maybe that laughter is just deep down. She knows, she doesn't really know what the hell here's the thing, core belief.
Yeah.
So I had a very real conversation today. And one of the things that I really brought forth is my honesty and my integrity. And I'm very honest. I mean, it's hard. It's next to impossible. Like I will break out in like some type of rash if I'm lying. Now, I don't know where Kamala really stands, but when you look at her background and how she rose to where she did, from favoritism and relationship and all these things, she got into a position where maybe she thought that all along she was going to be able to skate and not have to answer anything. And deep down, she really doesn't have the answers. I think one of the best analogies that I heard the other day is instead of an adult explaining policies, it's as if she's a child trying to give simple answers to adults, but coming across as very childlike. And this word salad that she gets stuck in, she honestly, that could be her actual IQ level. It's just coming out now. Hey, crazier things have happened. I mean, I correlate this team. Do you remember when Hilda Beast chose Tim Kaine?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you remember Tim's Kaine Titanic sinking moment?
I mean, there was a lot. I'll be honest. When you just said, I forgot who Hillary Clinton's running mate. Like, I literally forgot until you said.
Do you remember when Tim Kaine did that bizarre? Remember?
No, he did. He did a Yelp too. Because I remember when Howard Dean did that back in whatever 2004, but or 2000 was it 2004? And then we're gonna go down to the White House. Yeah. But Tim Kaine did a Yelp weird thing too.
Yeah. I mean,
okay.
I don't know. These people that here's the way that I look at it is we're on a diminishing road on the Democrat side. I mean, you start looking back to, even though Carter was an epic failure, at least, he could speak.
Sure.
You could understand him. He commanded respect. You look at Obama. Obama's probably going to get the biggest crowd response tonight out of anybody. And quite honestly, he's going to be a very powerful figure behind the scenes in the Democrat Party for a long time. But you look at Biden and you look at all the rest of them that were being listed to. I mean, when I heard that, oh my God, I'm blanking our here in Minnesota. Amy Klobuchar, help us, dear Lord.
Okay.
I mean, you look at, then, okay, we understand why Biden was put in because Biden was an empty suit and could be controlled. But when I watched the DNC last night, which I'm going to go down and watch tonight, all I saw was a very unhappy, a lot of anger, a lot of rage, I think that they said Donald Trump's name like a couple of hundred times. They barely mentioned the economy, inflation. This is all just trying to stir the same narrative that helped in 2020, which is orange man, bad man, how horrible he is. Keep reminding people or getting people upset about January 6th, all these other things that have, all of the lies that were debunked by Biden. But at the end of the day, Americans have to get up every day. They have to go to their jobs. They're collecting their paychecks that have been diminishing on a very fast direction. We're not getting ahead. In the state of Minnesota, inflation surpassed wages and earnings. Yep. You go to the grocery store and you are seeing consistent price increases with your groceries. You are making choices that are all derived from these two that are in office. And Kamala, if she was going to do any of these things, if this administration was going to do anything, they would have done it by now. So anything that she says, oh, day one, I will this and that. No, she's going to continue to destroy this country because they are the far most radical ticket that we have ever had. And I do believe that this will be an election year, much like 16, that there will be people after the 16 election, AK. I did my normal running around asking people, you know what I heard time and time again? I heard people telling me that they voted for the first time ever in their life.
Yeah. No, this is the thing is that the Democrats, the DFL, whether in Minnesota or across the nation, they're going to obviously try and create this idea of like feeling, like create a narrative that makes people feel a certain way. And you're right, they're going to throw everything out there, but I just think that it's not going to work as long as we continue to push back on these narratives and we talk about these things. Like this is a great thing that people They know, but they don't really understand that, like, Elon Musk buying Twitter and turning it into X has been amazing for having decentralized platform, a decentralized platform that allows voices on the right to be able to get their message out there. And I think that has been phenomenal. Elon Musk had President Donald Trump, like, he came back to his X account, and they did they did a Spaces, and I mean it had a bunch of attacks, DDoS, denial of service, denial of service attacks that were happening, and it finally got, they were able to work through it, and it was phenomenal. Like, we're talking about like 1 billion people reached. Phenomenal, right? And so that all pushes back against the narratives that the Democrats are trying to craft. But I'm not an idiot. I know that things can change politically, but I also think that if we keep at it, we're going to be looking very nicely. And like you said, right, Minnesota, I think it's important for people to understand a couple of things. Inflation outpaced, right, for a lot of goods and services, and just generally outpaced wages hugely. For instance, most people don't realize that in Minnesota is one of the highest states when it comes to our increase of groceries year after year, since basically Joe Biden took office and Kamala Harris took office. Groceries are up some 30%. 30. So that means unless your wages increase 30%, you have lost purchasing power. That's in Minnesota. Now, nationally, the number is like 21%. So in Minnesota, our inflation for food is almost 10 percentage points higher. Do you think that Governor Tim Walz had a say in that? I do. He can't control the economy, but his economic policies as a governor in regards to encouraging business to come to the state and doing things like that 100% affects that. And that's why when you look at the pace of inflation versus the growth of real wages, we are not keeping pace. And so all of these things, I think, build a great narrative and story. It's just about being able to get it out to the people of America. I'm not, again, my very optimistic view is I think that Donald Trump, it's his to lose. Him and JD Vance, it's theirs to lose. My concern is Minnesota, because I live here, because I'm the national committee man, and because I want to be able to see a stop of this far left progressive garbage nonsense coming from St. Paul's Capitol. And we have an opportunity to do that. And I think that we are looking better now, even though Tim Walz is on the ticket, even though he's our current governor, than I think we looked before. I know I want to start getting ready to wrap up. I do have a real job, actually, that I work overnight some nights. And we started a little bit later on tonight's stream, but
yep, we got to wrap it. But I want to say, here's what I want for a show idea. I would love to be able to find somewhere where the two of us could sit and be live and somehow advertise an event where we can be and have tons of people coming up and giving us, because I think people would start to really understand. Whenever I get down and frustrated, I go out and I go to my grocery store, my gas station, liquor store, any, department store, restaurant, anywhere, and you just ask people, and I think it'll give you some ray of hope and optimism, because we all of us who have jobs and have to afford our way of living, it's been getting tougher. And I know we got to wrap up here. Go ahead. I think we have some comments for you to read.
Yep. So we do got one comment. Shout out to Terry Pennison. She is actually a neighbor of mine. She lives not too far away. Fantastic. And she just wanted to make a comment. Then she would have to fulfill all those day one promises before the election, which is kind of part of that strategy that I was saying is, like, again, I will not leave it to the Democrats, the DFL, the deep state to pull last minute shenanigans, October surprise. Because remember, she started stealing Trump's campaign promises and policies. No tax on tips. Basically a $6,000 child tax credit, which JD Vance was talking about, a $5,000 child tax credit, not cutting Social Security, all these different things. So I think that that's part of the strategy. But like I said, I think it's like 51%.
It's not even strategy. This is, we used to say, I do believe that Obama has been running behind the scenes of Biden, but who's behind the scenes of Kamala? This could be coming straight out of her. Like I say, there's no substance there. So for her to just turn around and mimic Trump,
It's unbelievable. Like, it's crazy that they think that that works. And it does work with the percentage of the population. But for everyone else, like even the ones that aren't paying attention, they're like, wait, I've heard Trump say that a bunch. And if I go and I search, I can
Why
see on his
can't I
website
find
it's on there.
anybody in Minneapolis, St. Paul that is jumping up and down? I haven't heard one person tell me, other than the guy today that said Kamala, and it wasn't because he said because she's going to give $25,000 to my daughter to buy her first home. No, he turns around and talks about January 6th, and then when I give him facts about it, then he backs down and says kind of like, "Oh, sorry, can you go away, lady?"
That's
Thanks.
funny. That's funny. Any other comments that you have on your end? I was just looking at the one that I saw come through over on my end.
No, do we have anybody? I don't even see any comments on the Facebook page. Maybe they'll pop up afterwards.
No, that's fine. So just to kind of wrap things up, a couple of things. If you're watching the stream after it's no longer live, please make sure to hit the like button on whatever platform you're watching it on. Make sure to hit the share button so other people can see it with your friends and your family. And then also follow us on Facebook, on our Facebook page. And right now it's listed as Bella Dangelo Show. We're trying to change it. There's like a whole thing. And if you're watching on YouTube or you haven't subscribed yet, please go and do that. It's just youtube.com/@red, right, and real. And that is our channel. You can also go and look at my X account, which is @real_AK_Kamara. Also, you can look at my TikTok account, which is @AK_Kamara. We're going to be back every Tuesday. We're supposed to start at 7. Had some technical difficulty. We start at 7:15, but we're going to start at 7 o'clock Central Time every Tuesday. And make sure that you, again, like the show, follow it. Anything that you want to kick it off to, Bella?
I just want to tell people we're all in this together, and it takes a grassroots effort. That was what started the Tea Party back in the day. We have to get back to small town America where we're not afraid to talk to somebody standing in line next to us, and take the soft approach and just say, I'm just curious because I'm concerned. Are you concerned? Take the soft approach. Don't attack anybody. Don't get upset if they tell you they're voting for the opposite that you are. But it's our job as American citizens. We have to take care of this country. It's called patriotism. It's called being an American. It's called being involved and aware, and not just throwing up our hands and saying, I don't pay attention. I don't know much. Yes, we all know quite a bit, actually, because we're living the effects of what these people have done while in office. So if we want to be a part of the change, and I mean the real change, not the hope and crap that they're trying to feed over there at the, I tried to come up with a creative name, but I got to say, people tuning in can't be very inspired by what they watched last night. They can't be very inspired when they walk out the door to their job and they're looking to their future. I had one girl the other day as I was waitressing, and she said, I don't think I'll ever be able to move out of my parents' home. She's 20 years old. I couldn't imagine that. I bought my first home when I was 18 years old. I bought it for contract for deed. Moved my little cute mama in it when I was 18. But anyways, I just want to inspire people to get out and talk to people, to get people listening, learning, engaged, and then voting in November, because we got to fight, baby, fight. And AK, thank you. I know you got to get to work. And I'm going to close out. Thank you. And we'll be back next Tuesday night. I'm going to say good night. God bless. God bless America. And ciao for now.
Are you fired up? Then take action. Copy the link to this episode and text it to one friend who needs to hear it. Support us where you found us by liking and subscribing for future content. This is a grassroots production supported by listeners like you. Visit patreon.com/Bella Dangelo.